Police officers of Reddit, what's the funniest thing someone has done because they were nervous around you? Daughter of a cop, my dad pulled next to a dealer in at a red light and started having a little chit chat. My dad, being the classic white guy punny dad, trying to be funny asked, so what happens when you reach 88 miles? And without hesitation whatsoever, he responds, I get a ticket. I was chatting with a cop one day in the parking lot of the building I was living in. He was equating that parking lot to being a prime fishing hole because of all the people who sped down the adjacent street. Me being me, I start saying, yeah, I don't know why people tear down there going 30 to 40 km/h over the speed limit. I usually don't go more than 15 over. He just looked at me and said, what you meant to say is, you don't speed. I opened my mouth to reiterate my point and quickly closed it. Partner and I pull up at Taco Bell to grab lunch. Notice this dude near a work truck looking kinda shifty, but he's standing next to another dude and both are wearing the same company logo. I pretty much ignore him. However, I realized I left my wallet back in the car. When I turn around, the dude is nowhere to be seen. He hasn't bolted. Parking lot is too big and we would see him. At this point it has piqued my interest and I walk towards the truck. All the while the other dude is just standing there shaking his head. Turns out this idiot is on his stomach trying to crawl under the truck because he thinks we are there for him. Bewildered, we detain the dude for a moment. We quickly find out he has no outstanding warrants, but instead was guilty of something stupidly minor. He used some of the gas from one of the company cans for his personal vehicle and he thought his boss knew. Dude ruined his work shirt, got called a fucking idiot by his coworker, and didn't even get away for no reason. Edit. For those wondering, the reason he was detained was reasonable suspicion, not probable cause. A reasonable person would believe that due to his actions, he was going to be, currently was, or has been involved in criminal activity. Hey, look at that. Technically he had been involved in a crime. However, this guy punished himself more than enough, be it from his silly actions or the guilt weighing on his mind for such a petty theft. No need for me to contact his boss over $3 of gasoline. My friend drove me home once when we were stopped for a routine check. He sipped from a beer once and was so nervous he said, I drank much orange juice, so if you test me positive on alcohol that's because the juice became alcohol in my belly. Couple of colleagues and I were searching a house for weapons after a guy had threatened his mum with a samurai sword. We were in his room, finding knives, swords, a crossbow, when one of my colleagues picks up a cylinder from the bed. I stared at him, gobsmacked, as he held it with his bare, ungloved hands, only to hear him ask, what the duck is this? Between laughing my butt off and gasping for breath, I managed to tell him it's a fleshlight. He ducks it to get off. Colleague stared at his slimy, recently used prize for a split second, before squealing like a pig and launching it across the room. My dad and I both work for the same PD. This is his story, not minimum. The shift before he had a guy detained for misdemeanor warrants or something. Some junkie comes walking down the road, sees the flashing lights and a cop next to a open back door. He empties his pockets, dumping a pipe, needles, and 5 grams of meth on the hood of his patrol car. He then spreads his legs and puts his hands on the car. My dad was shocked, let the other guy in the back go and took in the guy who just handed over his meth. Apparently not sleeping for 3 days makes you paranoid. I commonly have people hand me their credit card or some other plastic when asked for their driver license. I think things that are done purposely have been funnier, like someone looking me in the eyes and purposely pissing their pants. Not a police officer, but my dad was driving with me, my brother, my mum and the cat in the carrier to our new house, but he didn't put his seatbelt on because he was stressed or something. Then a police car drove over and asked Dad, guess why I pulled you over? My dad was really nervous and farted loudly, turned around and blamed it on the cat. The police officer was hysterical and told him to put his seatbelt on and laughed hysterically while driving off. Sweet tip, I'll try that next time I get pulled over. Proceeds to violently poop pants and point to a non-existent cat and get brought in for driving while insane. Not a cop, but I used to work as an EMT. Drivers who were speeding would sometimes slow down when they would see my ambulance, like I could pull them over or something, even with no lights or sirens on. I always thought that was hilarious. Also, when running lights and sirens, instead of moving over and letting my ambulance pass, some idiots would slam on their brakes before moving to the side when I came up behind them, forcing me to slam on my brakes. Never do this. Not an officer, but as I was smoking in a park at night I saw flashlights coming up the path and quickly ate the remainder of my 2,5G joint. Unbeknownst to me, it was my uncle who is an officer in my city's small department. He obviously knew, and luckily didn't tell my parents. RIP 2.5G joint. Don't worry, he ate it. It did its job. Wife got nervous when a cop pulled up behind her at a traffic light once. When she was pulling away, he turned on his lights and pulled her over. Turns out she absent-mindedly pulled away when the light was still red. No ticket. Not me, my brother. Someone was speeding and got pulled over. He didn't even have a license. Later found out he was a 15-year-old kid who took his mom's car, so he tried to act as if he was mentally challenged, thinking it would help his case. I never saw it, but from the way my brother described it, it sounded funny. I had a black friend who lived in a very small, very white suburb. He was a very nervous weeaboo type. I'm driving past the cop station, get pulled over for a headlight that had just went out. No problem, just gonna get a fix-it ticket. So I'm calmly talking with the cop when he points to the passenger seat. What's up with your friend? My friend, who was a large dude, had his feet up on the seat and was trying to press himself up against the seat and passenger door, holding very still, as if he could blend in like a chameleon and not be seen. I exclaimed, "Oh my god, you're going to get us shot." Turned around to the cop. "I'm sorry officer, he's nervous because he's the only black man in." Got away with the fix-it ticket. Maybe too late, but one day I was headed to my station at the end of shift, meaning I stare straight ahead and avoid getting any paperwork to make me stay late. I happened to be behind the same car for maybe 2 miles on the same road. We are sitting at a red light, and out of nowhere this dude runs it. Everyone at the intersection looks at me, so of course I stop the dude, make contact, and he can barely hand me his license. He's shaking so bad from being nervous. Ask why he's so scared, and he says he saw me behind him and he's on diversion for running a red light. Also ends up having weed in the car. Not my story. My dad was driving on the highway and some guy passed him going 20 over the speed limit. My dad put his bright red coffee cup on the dashboard on the cup holder and the speeder pulled over. My dad isn't a cop. He works for the Iowa Department of Ag and was driving a state vehicle with a state issued license plate and stickers all over the car. The guy was going so fast he thought my dad was a cop. Not my story, but my cousin's. He was working a late night near a Taco Bell. There was a disturbance in the store. He, being nearby, decided to go check it out. The moment the suspect saw the sirens, he was terrified, and when my cousin spoke to him, he just shat his ass and said back, quote, "Whoopsie, that's the tacos." I still tease him about that to this day. A cop that came to our school to talk about drinking and stuff said that commonly they will catch people driving drunk by pulling next to them and gradually slowing down until they come to a stop. People, when paranoid or under the influence of something, have this idea that they can't pass a police car. Not a police officer, but one time my unit in the army was training with the Border Patrol in Southern California. Over the course of 3 weeks, guys, being what guys are, start trading t-shirts for souvenirs and such. Anyways, we came out of a field problem and wanted something to eat. Our Border Patrol partners recommended a small hole-in-the-wall restaurant and told us to let the staff know the regulars had sent to us so we would get taken care of. So we quickly changed into the new clean shirts, and as it turns out, we got slightly lost. We walked into a small Mexican restaurant and told the hostess that the Border Patrol had sent us, all the while wearing Border Patrol t-shirts. A couple of quick glances from the kitchen staff and some dropped plates occurred as 3 or 4 members of the cooking crew ran out the back of the store. We had to repeat multiple times that we were in the army and just wanted breakfast. After everyone calmed down, we ate a great breakfast, tipped well, and were on our way, and never wore Border Patrol shirts/hats again.